We're now reaching towards the end of the pandemic where 3 states are ending mask mandates. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first, in St. Louis, parents are suing school districts over the mask mandate. Here's a clip.
His attorney general is asking a judge to halt some school districts from enforcing mask mandates. This comes as Eric Schmidt works with some parents to sue districts over face coverings. For weeks, we've been asking those parents who are suing if they talk to us about why they feel like this is the approach that they need to take. Well, tonight, some are speaking only to News 4's Jenna Ray. Jenna?
You guys, right now I'm here outside of St. Louis Public Schools headquarters where they're fighting their own mask litigation as we speak. They're one of several dozens of districts across the region who have parents like the ones that I spoke to suing them. And the parents say they just want their time in court because they believe the schools have tried to silence them.
I think it's enough with the mandates for me, and that's where I kind of was on board with that.
After 2 years of hefty COVID mitigations across the Hazelwood School District, Erica Crawford is changing course.
I think it's time for us to get that freedom back.
We were hopeful that the mask mandates in Rockwood would also drop, but when that didn't happen, and the Attorney General said that we should report school districts who were not complying, I decided to do that.
Rachel Wood's a parent in the Rockwood School District. Both moms now co-plaintiffs with Attorney General Eric Schmidt suing for what they believe are illegal mandates.
I don't co-parent with the school district on the health decisions for my kids.
Yeah. I think every parent and family should be able to choose what's right for their own kids.
St. Louis attorney Mark Milton joining the fight for free.
I think these parents should have the right to choose whether or not their kids are forced to wear masks. I'm not anti-mask. If you want to put your kid in a mask, you have the right to do so.
Milton's representing parents across 18 area school districts.
Between the three of my boys, all three of them have come home with different stories talking about teachers basically harassing them. Even at recess, our schools are required to keep them on outside. They don't really have an opportunity to get fresh air. So when policies are in place that just don't make sense, it's very hard for me to justify keeping my boys in the school system.
Masking has become so divisive. Many of us want it, many of us don't. But it is a fact that Eric Schmidt is running for a U.S. Senate seat. I asked these moms if they think he's using this for political gain.
I think we do need this fight for our kids. So I wouldn't say that he's using that to gain any type of advantage into his Senate seat.
He's doing so much good to protect rights of Missourians. I wish he would stay Attorney General or run for governor.
We asked both districts to respond to these lawsuits that are filed within Missouri courts. Rockwood did respond to us, and they said that their attorneys have assured them that they can implement these types of policies inside their classrooms. We're live downtown tonight. Jenna Ray, News 4.
News 4.
But there are some people that are issuing this mask mandates despite what the court said.
First tonight at 6, a new legal fight over masks. You're taking a live look in Collinsville, where very soon parents say they plan to let Collinsville school leaders hear their 2 cents. They don't want masks, and they say the law is on their side. But this is all boiling up to a bigger legal fight statewide.
Tonight, the Illinois governor is filing an appeal over a judge halting mask enforcement in schools. Let's get you to News 4's Gabriela Vidal in Collinsville. Gabby.
Yeah, Corey and Sam, here's a different angle of that protest that you're seeing happening here right outside the Collinsville School District offices. Now, parents are upset that Collinsville School District is maintaining its mask mandate despite this temporary restraining order issued on Friday against Illinois School District mask mandates.
We felt like this was a big win.
But not all are celebrating the outcome of the Sangamon County Circuit Court ruling. Today, Edwardsville and Collinsville continued requiring masks in class. despite a temporary restraining order against Governor Pritzker's mask mandate for Illinois public schools.
Regardless of what happens, there's going to be difference of opinions, and if you find 6 law firms across the state, you're probably going to find 6 different opinions.
School attorneys for both the Edwardsville and Collinsville school districts concluded because the circuit court judge did not certify the lawsuit as a class action suit, the outcome only applies to the children of parents who were plaintiffs in the lawsuit, like Edwardsville parent Heather Johnson.
My children were super excited, and they just want their friends to be able to have the same liberties as they do.
Both districts say a small number of students still tried to go to classes today without masks.
15 to 20 at our high school, and that's the largest group out of the district. We haven't disciplined anybody. What we've said is if you don't want to wear a mask or you refuse to wear a mask, we're not going to let you go to the classroom, because we do want our classrooms to be masked. So we've provided a space in each school, typically the library, for students to be if they decide they don't want to wear a mask.
The number of issues that we had today was in the single digits. We have not disciplined a child for not wearing a mask. We've had some, quite frankly, we had some parents come and pick up their children, absolutely, but there's been no discipline.
Johnson worries the district's response to the circuit court ruling alienates her children.
Within 2 weeks, I'm hoping all schools in Illinois will be mask choice.
Both Collinsville and Edwardsville are saying that masks will still be required for most students in the district. I did speak to a SLU law professor who tells me that this temporary restraining order actually applies to all school districts and all students in those school districts, and we'll have more on that coming up tonight, as well as more from this protest happening here outside the Collinsville School District offices. Corey?
All right, Gabby, thank you. On the other side of the river, the Rockwood School District is now a mask recommended policy. That means both students and staff have the option to wear a mask. That will change, though, if a school's COVID case and quarantine rate increases above 4%, masks then would be required. With this change at Rockwood, we asked Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt if his mask fight will continue against the district. His office says, quote, if there is still a possibility for a mask mandate under current policy, litigation will continue.
And they will fight. Coming up, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So for 3 school districts, they decide to end mask mandates. We're going to tell you what their school districts are saying, plus more COVID. And then the UIL. What does that mean? The UIL thing for the UIL for Texas as they go to the ballot. What does that mean for all home games? Find out when we continue. There are more lawsuits happening as schools issues mask mandates. So let's go to Virginia, where a judge weighs in.
She's so sweet.
Because let me tell you, schools do not have the right to issue mask mandate unless it's a last resort. If it's a last resort, then it's parents' choice, and parents don't have a right to choose. Take a look.
Mask mandate debate makes it to court. Several lawsuits have been filed against Governor Glenn Youngkin's executive order that makes masks optional in schools. One of them was filed by 7 school districts, including Richmond Public Schools. Jake Burns traveled up to Arlington, where a hearing was just held for that case.
No decision from an Arlington judge on Wednesday, but she did make one thing abundantly clear. I'm not here to decide who is right and who is wrong about masking. That, the clear message from Judge Luis DiMatteo in Arlington, saying her decision is about whether Governor Glenn Youngkin or local school districts have the authority to set masking policies in schools.
They thought it was important. That's why we're here.
John Cafferty, representing those 7 school boards, including Richmond. In court, he argued that the Virginia Constitution gives school boards the power to set safety and health protocols, and that Youngkin's action undoes those decisions. As Cafferty put it, it, quote, crams a ceiling on how schools can protect their students and teachers.
I think it's our clients' strong belief that that's the case. They obviously see it differently.
The Deputy Attorney General representing Youngkin declined to speak with reporters. In court, Stephen Pops pointed out Youngkin issued the order under the same emergency powers that Governor Northam used in shutting down businesses and schools at the beginning of the pandemic. Pops saying the governor has the broad authority to use his judgment when setting such policies, and school boards not making masks optional actually violates the law. Judge DiMatteo had pointed questions for both teams and says her opinion will be focused on who actually has the authority here, a decision which she says she knows people are waiting for an answer.
We'll have to wait to see what the judge has to say in her decision, and then depending on what happens there, there'll be opportunities for appeal.
You heard Cafferty there mention the possibility of appeals. Our legal analyst says that's almost 100% likely, no matter what the judge decides. If that's the case, it'll likely end up in the Supreme Court of Virginia, and then that decision would likely impact school districts all across the Commonwealth.
I probably agree with that. So yes, it's up to the parent. You can't be. Every parent needs to understand that's their choice, and school districts need to. If they don't want to agree, schools don't want to agree, then okay, it's their choice. They don't have to agree. They need to understand that it's the parent's choice. Now, 3 states announcing changes to the school mask rules. Could there be a light at the end of the tunnel? Take a look.
Mask mandates. The governors of New Jersey, Delaware, and good evening, and thank you for joining us as we kick off the week together. Tonight, the first glimmer of hope in what could be life after the pandemic. 3 states across the Northeast, once the epicenter of the Omicron surge, have announced timelines to end strict COVID mask mandates. The governors of New Jersey, Delaware, and Connecticut all made the announcement to end their state's in-school mask mandates as cases continue their steep decline nationwide. According to Johns Hopkins, the number of new cases yesterday are down more than 95% from the high of nearly 1.4 million on January 10th. More states are expected to follow suit, even as the White House today said that universal mask wearing in schools still remains our recommendation. Well, we've got a lot of news to get to tonight, and CBS's Nancy Chen will start us off from New York. Good evening, Nancy.
Nora, good evening to you. Americans are still sharply divided over restrictions, but one after another, state leaders are moving to a new normal, even as health officials urge caution.
New Jersey has had one of the country's strictest mask mandates in schools until now.
This is a huge step back to normalcy for our kids.
Democratic Governor Phil Murphy announcing an end to mask mandates in schools.
We're not going to manage COVID to zero. We have to learn how to live with COVID as we move from a pandemic to the endemic phase of this virus.
COVID cases there are down 89%, but the CDC continues to recommend universal masking in schools. Deidre Birmingham, a New Jersey mother of 2, fears the new rules will lead to mass chaos.
What are your concerns going down the road? It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle. When a new variant comes along, it would be hard to ask people to go back to putting masks on.
In Illinois, where cases are down 73%, more than 140 school districts scrambled this weekend after a judge forced them to drop the state's mask mandate.
The judge's decision cultivates chaos for parents, families, teachers, and school administrators across the state.
The ruling came after more than 700 parents sued to stop the mandate. Tonight, Connecticut's governor is dropping their school mask requirement. On Friday, Delaware's governor is ending that state's indoor mask mandates and lifting it in schools next month. Nationwide, COVID cases are down 42% from just last week, but health officials warn normalcy isn't here yet.
What does normalcy look like these days?
Well, I think normalcy, Nancy, is going to be when transmission's down to an exceedingly low level. The only caveat is to make certain that it really does go down where you can halt mask restrictions. We're not there yet.
And here in New York, as COVID cases fall, the state's mask mandate is set to expire on Thursday, with the governor signaling it could be lifted entirely. Nora?
Nancy Chen, thank you.
Now that's some good news. But how about here in Nueces County? Well, in the state of Texas, 6.39 million plus 60,127, almost 81,000 plus 71, with 88,974 plus 653. That's we're over 89,000. We're now over 1,400 deaths. Positive tests 17.9%, almost at 20%. Over 20,000 people in ICU, and over 115,000 people have been hospitalized. 70% have had at least one dose, and 59.2% are fully vaccinated. We gotta climb up there. And everyone is climbing that ladder, making sure everyone gets that vaccine. 4 students in high school, 0 staff. 1 junior high student, 4 zeros. 1 elementary, 5 zeros, which is good. Until then, we have to continue to do what we always do. If we can't vaccinate, wash your hands, social distance, masks, very important. Wear it the right way. Sanitize your hands. If you're in the class, sanitize your area. If you're riding transportation, it's basically the same thing. If you have a medical condition, just let your child know. Let the bus driver know beforehand. You can have any safety protocol you want. That's not the issue. The issue is you don't issue a mask mandate when it's the parent's choice. Can't be doing that. UIL baseball thing, UIL sports thing is happening next year. What could that mean for all home games? When we come back, we'll have that story. On to sports now. Area teams are scrambling as they hit their way to the Valley. But what does that mean for all home games? Here's Alan Harwell.
As the message reads, confidential. Do not.
Alan Harwell, yeah. Here's Alan Harwell.
As the message reads, confidential. Do not open until 9 a.m. The information contained in this box from the UIL will affect our local high school teams for the next 2 years. Inside, a listing of the new UIL realignment. Coaches and athletic directors have been anticipating this moment for quite some time. Once schools discover which districts they will play in, coaches begin to scramble to fill out their schedules.
We need San Antonio's or Laredo's or Valleys are out for Houston's, the midweek threes so that our sub-varsities.
The biggest challenge, finding enough opponents to fill their non-district slate.
We got to find a week 6, we got to find a week 5, and we got to find a week 3. I'm going to call Gonzales right now.
I've been to Wall Street once in New York, and it was very similar to experience on Wall Street.
All right, let's do it. Let's lock it in September 23rd. You're scrambling, you're making phone calls, you have cheat notes, what they have for each week, and you're looking to see what district they're in. It's pretty stressful, but you definitely earn your money doing this.
Well, it's difficult because you always depend on the surrounding schools to play you, and they wouldn't play us or Vance, so now we're having to go look outside of the surrounding areas to go find games. And
it's always a little stressful. You want to make sure that you have good competition that's going to prepare you for district and hopefully post-district play, but then you also don't want to be traveling a whole lot.
Traveling a whole lot, exactly. And what does that mean for all home games? Well, I think that, basically, I think what's going to happen here is there's going to be less home games, a lot of away games out in the Valley. So that's really some interesting news there. Moving on to the very latest, there's some residents in Century 16 that say that the crime near Century 16 has been on the wave. Take a look.
In America,
what should have been a really fun family day at the movies turned into a pretty horrible experience for a local family.
That's right. Their truck was stolen from a parking lot at the Century 16 complex on SPI near Niles yesterday. And this story has a plot twist. This family is just the latest to fall victim to these types of crimes in that area. Chris 6 News reporter Andrew Christensen has the story.
I'd rather watch Netflix than come here, to be honest.
The Craig family walked out of the Century 16 movie theater on Sunday. Their truck, nowhere in sight. The thief stealing house keys and a credit card from inside the vehicle and racking up an $1,000 bill. They tell us they let the theater management and police know.
Everybody's just been very unhelpful, very nonchalant. blasé about the whole thing.
They were told the security cameras were not working, and on-property security doesn't come until 3 p.m., about an hour after they got to the theater.
All the people that come out here on a regular basis and just leave their vehicles thinking that it's going to be okay, there's no cameras, there's no protection out here for you, nothing. And then when something happens, they don't care. They're not going to do anything about it.
Right next to the movie theater on Daily Drive, owner of Discount Motor Company Frank De La Rosa says break-ins and trespassing are common on his property.
My security is something that's just that we worry about. You know, it's every night there's somebody here.
He says drug-related crimes in nearby areas could be the root of the issues.
People are walking around like zombies up and down the street. There was a lady just the other day staying on top of a car.
At the end of the day, the Craig family just needing a helping hand.
All they had to do was come up and say, we're really sorry, what can we do to help you?
We reached out to the Corpus Christi Police Department and Cinemark, who owns Century 16. Both haven't gotten back to us over the incident. Reporting in Corpus Christi, Andrew Christensen, Chris 6 News.
Here is a few reminders that can help protect you from vehicle break-ins. Let's take a look. As always, make sure that your doors are locked and windows rolled up. If it's nighttime, park in a well-lit area and don't leave any valuables inside. Put them in the trunk or cover them. Install an alarm system in your vehicle and make sure it's activated when you leave. Get wheel locks to discourage tire thieves. And finally, properly insure your vehicle.
Break-ins are happening. When we return, have there been any more school threats this week? As the first week begins, are there any more threats? Find out next. Every time I turn north, south, east to west, the north side, there's something good happening in our schools. The south side, there's always bad happening in our schools. West side, there's always a school shooting and prank calls, and on the other side, there's school threats happening. There are 3 school threats this week. In Green Bay, the Green Bay School District expelled students charged with social media threats. 2 students have been charged with social media threats against Pueblo High School. They've been expelled by Area Public Schools. Their attorney said on Monday. During the course of the week span in September, there were separate social media threats against Pueblo High. 4 students faced charges in juvenile court for those incidents. A 15-year-old male was declared delinquent, juvenile version of guilty here in last week. The hearing is happening for like 2 to 3 weeks, although the team is expected to be transported last week to South Service near New London. The other student charged in the East Hive incident returns to court next week. Other 2 students charged in connection with threats. The other two are expected to court later this week. A bomb threat happens in Butler County where someone called in a bomb and they closed down. Legal prosecution would happen. A Catholic school senior is accused of making shooting threats on social media. According to the police, a school administrator was notified post by email as a concerned student. He's being held at the jail with no bond. Hopefully that'll teach him a lesson. Valley City Public Schools. The latest information has been given by the superintendent. The identified individuals with a student who will not be attending school for the near future and further disciplinary actions are pending. School districts take concerns very seriously. Your child's information, please have contact school principal. And Freedom Elementary School calls it receiving threats overnight. I mean, all schools take this very seriously. I take this very seriously also. You don't have a right to make threats. If you don't want to go to school, it's your choice to make. Don't phone in a bomb threat and then expect people to get out of school. You will go to jail. Now let's turn things over to Oxford, where there is very latest right now. The principal there, in two $100 million lawsuits, denies the allegations. Just 2 days ago, Fox 2 Detroit did a story about this. The administrators and staff at Oxford High School denied negligence after a lawsuit filed against them claiming they failed to address potential threats. I mean, this is the final one. This is the second lawsuit. 5 pages of this. In that new lawsuit, what they said was, defendants say they breached any duties and further deny that they were negligent in the matter. Defendants mainly state they were guided in strictly overall legal duties, obligations imposed by preparation law and otherwise. Further, all actions of the agents, stewards, and employees were careful, prominent, and lawful. And according to this new lawsuit, that's what it has to be. I have to, and they also violated the Child Protection Act. I have to agree with the attorneys on this. I have to side with them, and for those principals to say, we didn't do anything, blah, 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 you're wrong. You know exactly what you did. You have to fess up to the crimes of what you did. You exactly know what you did. You allowed this to happen. Y'all stand back and say, we don't care. You guys are swept under the rug. He threatened local schools. Y'all didn't. He threatened the school. You did nothing. We blame the parents. They're recently in another lawsuit that claims they violated. It wasn't the school. It was the parents. If the parents had not followed the law, Ethan would have been in jail, and the parents would just come up there and say, and just pick up their son. That's all they had to do. But things change. So here's the rundown so far. Ethan and his parents are in jail. The parents are charged with involuntary manslaughter. Ethan's charged with murder, pleading in the Sandy court. And if this case is ever taken, and if this lawsuit is ever taken before a Supreme Court or for a trial, the school had to order them to pay a lot of money. But the defense also knows those names in the suits are immune. But according to the defense, school employees are not liable for the criminal assaultive acts of third parties. The teacher reported this to administrators and school counselor and Crumley's parents. His parents are accused of refusing to take him home after hearing about his behavior. So it's like, hey, Mr. Crumley, this is so-and-so. Your son has issues. Can you come pick him up? It's like, I'm sorry, I can't. That's why they violated it. That's why they accused the parents of violating that law. Let's try to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's all for this edition of Give Me a Break Monday, going to Tuesday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Wednesday. Or probably tomorrow, depending if I'm in a good mood. For all of us here at YouTube, have a good night.